Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News with the last chance qualifier concluding. Lots of big rumours emerging as to exactly what went on behind the scenes with Cloud9. Apparently a complete shambles in the run-up to the tournament. What does that mean in terms of potential roster changes for next year? But also FaZe Clan releasing their roster entirely, at least their men's roster, after a disappointing challenger season. Will that team ever return to VALORANT competitive? That's a big question. Very much enjoy to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to get into. This I thought was a lovely idea here on Lotus that I hadn't actually seen. Before we get into that from Chet, wanted to quickly mention this from Eng, who I believe was working with TSM now and is now looking for a head coach position in all regions. So wishing the best for him going forward. But also this. So Leo Farrier discusses Champions LA, which is the next big tournament arriving August the 6th, I believe it officially begins. Hopefully something has his visa sorted by then. The rumor was a week or so ago that he did. So hopefully that's the case and Paperx will be good to fly out there with their full strength team because it's not far away at this point. But as Leo Farrier says, I realise this is poor expectation management, but Champions LA is by far our most ambitious event yet. It's going to be bonkers. I can't wait for you all to see everything that we have in store. So exciting stuff. Then Chet says in the replies, because Chet always wants the best quality stuff. Understandably, he's a coach. I mean, you could say, oh, this guy's always complaining, but, you know, he wants the best for his players and for his team, and he's made many thoughts known at events in previous years when, I think it was it the Iceland event, or I forget which one it was, but when he was stuck in a room ages away from the main stage, and he was like, how does this make any sense? The coaches are stuck down here backstage, like, it takes like several minutes to even walk to where the players are. That's not ideal, and they've generally fixed those problems over the last couple of years. Chet says, can you guys please upgrade the monitors to 360 hertz? No, I've never played on a 360 hertz or even a 240 hertz monitor. My monitor's 144 hertz, and that's pretty much good enough for me. But the pros, they obviously want to play on the maximum refresh rate, even if they're not even getting necessarily those frames. They want to play on the best possible spec stuff. So Chet wants 360 hertz monitors. Leo Farrier says, let me look into it, but honestly, I think it's unlikely. We prioritize consistency for these things, and the whole season was played on 240 hertz. Also, we'd need to upgrade the entire fleet of hundreds of PCs. Can't just do that for the stage. But then Chet says, and apparently this was also the case in the Pacific, that the Americas League was played in LA with 360 hertz BenQs, and the event is in LA. So you would think, therefore, that they would do this, but maybe the specs or what they're being told is that they're going to be on 240 hertz monitors. Should it make a massive difference? Probably not, but it is an interesting one, because if, like, let's say the EMEA region has been playing on 240 hertz the entire time, and now they're coming out to LA to play on a different set, but it could be the same story the other way around for the Americas teams. It's a little bit confusing why things apparently haven't been standardized across the world, but you would expect that if the Americas League was played in LA with those equipments, with a 360 hertz monitor, that's the same thing they'll get for the Champions event in LA as well. But if they don't, that's a little bit surprising. Also though, massive story from yesterday from FaZe Clan. I'm frankly surprised it took them this long to do this, but it's now been officially confirmed. They are saying goodbye to their men's VALORANT roster. The game changer stuff will continue on. We know that G2 have dropped their entire men's VALORANT team as well, but G2 goes and it still continues to have the kind of dynasty of the game changer scene. But yeah, babybay, Poised, Supermen, Mame and Tig all gone. Didn't have the result they wanted this season, and it's not a surprise that these rosters are getting fully released. Riot must feel like, damn, we must have dropped the ball here somewhere, because it is now just such a consistent trend of all these teams leaving. Of the rosters that were in the Americas last year, like, I guess we can just look at Split 2 by way of example. So Disguised are gone, G2 are gone, Mad Lions are gone, or Esports weren't even like a proper team, but they're gone, TSM are gone, Turtle Troop weren't really a team, FaZe are gone, SR I think are partially gone, but they've half stayed. Oxygen, I'm pretty sure, do they not release their team? I kind of lose track. Moist Mogul still exists, so fair play, like, all these teams that have kept their rosters. M80 as well, like, I'm sure they're considering what to do, so they've stuck around. The guard actually qualified. Moist Moguls are staying, but basically everyone else has departed, largely because there's 6 months of nothing. Like, what's the point paying these guys for 6 months? Might as well release them and then re-sign them again at some point in the future. But also, is it worth it? okay, it's been worth it for the guards. They, made it through, they had the best team, they qualified through Ascension, and they made it all the way up. But it's incredibly difficult to do that, like to get through the playoffs as they did, to go down there to Brazil, to Sao Paulo, to play in that tournament where they eventually beat M80 in the finals to qualify for Ascension. But is the reward from that worth the potential risk and expense of a FaZe, a G2, these other teams going forwards? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. That's a question they'll have to answer next season, but Riot's structure here for Tier 2 has pretty much forced these organizations to do this, because even if these guys are getting paid 5k a month, I don't exactly know what the going salaries are there in the challenger side, but even if let's say FaZe are paying 25-30k a month on pure salaries for the team, it just doesn't make any sense for them to do that every month for the next 5-6 months with no tournaments ongoing. So wishing the best for these players, of course, but I just wonder whether a lot of these teams that are departing now will actually ever bother returning to Valorant Tier 2 next season if they don't get the Tier 1 spots, because to earn it, it might cost way more to earn it, and what you get in return, then it's actually worth expending. So if the tournament structure was better, a lot of these organizations might never have left and therefore would have stayed. But they now have to make an active decision to re-sign a roster, and that's not exactly going to be cheap or easy to do. So I think some of these organizations might never return, and we might well have a situation where we've got so many rosters next season, especially in like the qualifiers for the challenger side, that have no brand attached to them, and they're just playing for free with the hopes of getting signed when they do well. And that's probably what Tier 2 is going to look like. And also, some of the players that get released by FaZe, 3 of the 5 of them will retain the spots next year in challenges. So that's also going to raise questions about what comes in there instead. So I think they might get picked up elsewhere, and hopefully they do. It won't be as a 5, right? I think maybe they should have done more with babybay as a player, because it's such a great personality, babybay, I think, but they didn't really use him for as much content as maybe they should have done. I imagine a lot of these players go their separate ways, but 3 of the 5, if they do retain, if they do stay together, will keep the roster spot for next season in challenges, which is what they'll want. So big developments there. Sean Gez says pick up Poised. He reckons he's going to be a great option. So that's one thing that Sean Gez said, but he also revealed something very interesting about Cloud9, who were apparently going into the tournament in a complete messy situation. We talked about Runi, we talked about Jake the other day, and the dichotomy between their reaction to getting eliminated from the LCQ, but after going 18-1 in the regular season, they were, to be honest, the heavy favourites to win the last chance qualifier. They fell out in 3rd, losing to Crew, and of course Leviathan also made the finals over Cloud9, despite the fact that they did take down Sentinels earlier on in the tournament. But Sean Gez reveals that they, in this video he did with Rod Sasha Breslau, that they were practicing with Cupid in their team instead of Runi for quite some time.
Man, 13-6, and they won both pistols. I'm not taking anything away from this team, but are you ready, Rod?
Oh, give me the spice.
Okay.
Give me the spice.
So, I've heard a couple birdies tell me that after playoffs, Cloud9 played a lot of scrims without Runi and with Cupid. And I think they ended up going back to Runi. But I think doing something like that, I think really affects the mental of a team. And I don't know the reasonings why.
Yeah, do you have any insight into why they were trying that out?
I have light insight, but not enough to really kind of say on the record. But I do know that they did get scrims in with Cupid, and even if you listen to the post-game interview with the Crew players, they mention the fact that we know how Cloud9 plays this map, and they talk about Harbor. They talk about Harbor, and then he says actually it's the same thing when they run Viper Omen instead of the Harbor comp. So they obviously have scrimmed Crew a lot, and that's why MC has given them credit. Behind the scenes, MC has basically said they were a very good scrim partner, and we respect the fuck out of them, and they think they're really good. So in addition to some in-house problems from Cloud9, maybe understanding how they play on the Crew from Crew's perspective helped them a lot in this series.
So Cupid, of course, was the substitute for this team and a solid player, no doubt. But why were they doing this, right? This isn't a thing where you would just do this because, oh, like just to give the guy some playtime. Like, this is practice for the big tournaments. Whether they were doing that because they thought, all right, on certain maps, we might bring in Cupid and see how it goes. But the implication seemed to be from ShahZaM that this was almost like an attempted roster change. Because you don't, if you're going to make a change map specific, you don't change out your IGL, and Runi came in as the IGL for the roster, so you wouldn't drop your IGL from practice unless that was an intention to actually do that, I would say at least. And it clearly wasn't working. They brought back Runi anyway, but why would they do this going into champs? Was their behind the scenes just a complete disaster, and therefore they were like, well, we've got to change something, our scrims aren't going well, Runi, get on the bench, we're going to bring Cupid in, and they played some scrims like that. And then when they decided to bring Runi back, eventually, you know, they realized that, well, we actually need this guy and we're better with this guy and we've lost a significant amount of practice time. He also mentioned how they scrimmed crew a lot in practice, which maybe gave them a slight disadvantage when they went to play them in the real game and therefore lost that series in the winners bracket. But what's going on at Cloud9, man? Such a strange season for these guys. Going from being bad or like relatively bad based on expectations at the start of the season to then making those surprise changes for Ye and Vanity, Runi and Jake coming respectively, then go 8-1 in the regular season, only losing to Loud right at the start, and then going to the LCQ in the playoffs, failing to perform, failing to deliver at the LCQ, and a lot of that might well have been kind of instrumentalized by, for some reason, benching Runi from practice in the lead up to the tournament. So just such a strange turn of events there. ShahZaM doesn't exactly explain why, or doesn't have quite enough information to share that publicly, but definitely intrigued to your perspective in the comments below. But if Cloud9 was struggling with their roster before the LCQ, then it's almost guaranteed they're going to be making changes now. And Ye definitely implied the other day that a return to Cloud9 might not be off the table. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.